The whole alpha male concept is a myth. There is no battle between two wolves to see who's going to lead the wolf pack. From a human standpoint, the alpha wolves are those that are married. Your whole embodiment is to please women, from the glasses to the cigars, to the big Bugattis, to the Ferraris, to the shoes, to the clothes. But yet you're the alpha, but yet your whole life is geared around pleasing women.
Man, let me tell you, hold on, time out. I get a lot of books. I'm reading this one.
We were created to be more than masculine. You look at David, throughout the Psalms, he cried. But no one dared test his masculine attribute.
How would you define masculinity or define manhood?
Well, that's the catch right there.
This is The Deep End with Lecrae.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited for y'all today. See, I'm excited for y'all because if you don't know, you gonna know. I beg you to stick around for this. Because sticking around means growth. Today, we got the honor of welcoming an incredible individual to the podcast today. We got a transformational leader. We got a best-selling author. We got a trailblazer in emotional intelligence. So I might be crying today. You know what I mean? Character development. We got my brother Jason Wilson. Jason is the CEO and the founder of the Cave of Adullam. And I probably didn't say that right, but we'll get it right by the end of the cast. You know what I'm saying? Also, basically, it's a transformational training academy. So we got martial arts happening in disenfranchised communities. A lot going on here. And then on top of that, man, you didn't help tons of people navigate their emotions. Tons of people break barriers and discover their potential. And so your books, Cry Like a Man, Battle Cry, of course, we got this one here, yes. The Man, The Moment Demands, are challenging stereotypes. And I'm just grateful, man. I know we seen you everywhere. CNN, Joe Rogan Experience, you know what I'm saying? Some of us saw... not you specifically, but we saw This Is Us take a little inspiration from you.
That's a good way to put it.
So we're gonna talk about that as well, man. I don't know what happened. I don't know, did they pay you or did they ask permission? But we'll find out. You know what I'm saying? But man, I'm honored to have you, bro.
I'm honored to be here, brother. And as I said, walking in, I'm really proud of you, your longevity. And I remember when it all started. And it was just amazing to see God's anointing fall on you.
Wow.
And it was so needed during the time because Christian hip hop, we had basically started, we had infiltrated all of the East Coast sound, even some of the West Coast. But this new surge of hip hop came, which was from the South.
Yeah.
And God sent you to minister to that population and even more. And so I just wanted to commend you for answering that call, man, and just proud of all you've been through, even your transparency. What was your last book?
I'm Restored.
Yes. Yeah, that was with Zondervan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I just appreciate you sharing the other side of who you are and showing so brothers know that we don't have to wear this facade, you know, and the Superman cape that's strangling so many men.
Right.
It's time to take that off and exude the humanity that the Most High has given us to live in. So I commend you for all.
Hey, man, I'm honored. It's always helpful to hear somebody who can put a person in the arm bar tell you that it's okay to cry.
Yeah, for sure, man.
You know what I mean?
I had to, that's, I think, what launched everything for the Cave. And so, but prior to that, brother, I don't want to get too far ahead.
No, go ahead, yeah.
But what's interesting, you bringing that up, as I was writing this book, I'm like, man, what allowed my boys the freedom to cry? Because when I first started, I embodied just only discipline. In martial arts, that's all they saw. They didn't see a tender side to me. But when my mother was had developed dementia, she had a mini stroke. And my wife had came into the area where we were training, and I knew something was wrong. And she called me over, and I said, hey, what's going on? She says, Mom had to get rushed to the hospital. She just had a stroke, a mini stroke. That was the first time, brother. So here I'm in the middle, my gi, ready to train, my kids excited, all the fathers are there, and I get overwhelmed with emotions. And I'm fighting it, and I'm like, man, what is this conflict? David cried throughout the scriptures. Yeshua, Jesus cried. Why can't men today release what I believe from studying the Most High's way to release stress hormones from the body. This has been proven by Dr. William Frey. In that moment, one of my students get up, say, Sharath. I didn't want to be called sensei, which means teacher. Call me Sharath. In Hebrew, that means servant. So I'll always be reminded of my role in the Cave of Adullam. And he said, Sharath, can I pray for you? I'm like, yeah, sure. When those kids surrounded me, man, I broke down. That was like the gateway or the key to not only their freedom to be human, but the father's. And so when that video went viral, we had already been set free. And God wanted to use that moment to set the world free, the men who are emotionally incarcerated.
Emotionally incarcerated. That's a great way to put it. So I'm glad you told that story, actually, because a lot of people would have seen a moment like that, but not necessarily been ready to step into it in a healthy way. And so I kind of want to kind of backtrack and see like what had your experiences been that, because there's always a trial before the triumph.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I know a little bit of your story, but I'm interested in learning a little more. Like, I look at myself, I was what they call a hangbanger. You know what I mean? I wasn't a gangbanger. I wasn't I hung with
That's
the bangers.
good. That's
you know
good.
what I mean? I'm
I
a
never heard
hangbanger.
that before.
Yeah.
I was a hangbanger then.
Okay.
I wasn't all the way in, but I was around.
That's what. So I'm just curious. Like, growing up I know that had a lot of negative effects on me. Had warped my views of masculinity and manhood. And I'm just curious. Like, you even mentioned like you tried to prove yourself, and like, talk to us a little bit about that journey and what that looked like for you growing up.
Well, growing up, man, not really understanding the impact of unresolved trauma, and in my community.
Which is Detroit, right?
Yeah, Detroit. From Detroit, West Side Detroit, right between 8 Mile and 7 Mile.
Okay.
Between two of the largest gangs, 7 Mile BKs, 8 Mile Sconies or Smurfs. The gold standard for a black male was to be hypermasculine, to be dominant, show no weakness, infallible to fear, you know. And so inside, I was raised to be a good boy, but I was literally born into trauma. My grandfather was lynched in 1935, and that intergenerational trauma carried over from my mother's siblings to when she got married. Her first husband was abusive. He used to hit her like, sacks of meat hanging like in a Rocky movie, from what my brother told me.
Sheesh.
And then he would walk through the house slapping them with the flat sides of butcher knives when he was upset. He would shoot his gun in the home. And I just praise Yah that my brother still has his sanity, because he grew up in that. And not only that, in 1973, when I was 3, my brother Larry was murdered. And so here it is, starting from my grandfather's lynching, it just keeps going and keeps going. And if not for my birth, my mother said that she would have probably taken her life. She already, from what I was told from the neighborhood, people who supported her, that she was just out of it, because Larry was beloved by so many people in our community. And I share that because we moved from that side of town, because I kept, every time the doorbell would ring, I would run to it and say, Larry, Larry, Larry. And so here's the trauma revisiting again.
Wow.
We moved to the west side of Detroit, beautiful neighborhood, but dangerous.
Right.
You couldn't tell,
Right.
but it was dangerous. And I tried to be this kind boy who I was. I loved art. I loved playing the guitar and, being creative. But I had to pick a side. And my father wasn't there, same city, just wasn't present. He had his own wounds. And the gang became my big brothers. After my older brother moved to Texas, Sinclair, the gang, I knew not to go so far, because, inside of me, it was like, I don't want to put my mother through that again. But I did a lot of foolish things and things that I regret to this day. Kids who were kind, I would have, I never like bullying, but just to be cool with the gang, I would sell out kids who were just friends of mine who were nice. You see what I'm saying? And then, and I saw that like, wait a minute, what's happening to the culture? And then the music, brother, you know, every album cover, no one smiled. You know, Rakim was one of my favorite. I ain't no joke. E40, what was it? I practiced looking hard, you know? And so all of that shaped me, changed this kind-hearted, loving, full of joy, loving my mom into someone who became angry, frustrated. Me and my mother, you know, at odds because she didn't want to lose another son. So anything I tried to do that was a little risky, not as far as like dangerous, but where it would take a chance, she would like discourage me. And so here it is at that pivotal age for most boys, 12 years old, grades are plummeting. My mother and I are not getting along. She wants to get me on medication because no one really understood how negative rather, the father wound can be in a young boy's life. And so that's what shaped me into, you know, this hard young man. Became a DJ, real popular in 1986 in Detroit. A rap group was called Chaos and Maestro. We did concerts with Public Enemy, X-Clan, who was Will Smith and DJ Jazzy Jeff when they were together.
Oh, wow.
So we were really popular. Then God started calling me at like 17, brother.
Okay. So wait, you were pursuing music.
Absolutely.
You wanted to be an artist.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to be first the best DJ, and I was, I think, one of the top in my city, definitely, easy.
Yeah.
But then I started making beats, and that became a goal. You see Jam Master Jay and all of them, like, I can do this, I can do it. I finally had an identity where I didn't have to be the killer, but I was the guy who orchestrated the music for the killer. So I was...
You could be connected to it.
They called me Maestro, you know, because I could always rock the club, and I was just like, all the music. So all the gang members would love me to DJ their parties.
That's crazy.
And so it was a way for me to stay cool, but not necessarily become a gangster.
Which is tough in a city like Detroit, because Detroit, like you were saying, beautiful neighborhood. Historically, Detroit is like this was the land of promise, and you got all this opportunity to work in the factories and to work in the car factories or whatnot. Of course, then there's an economic downturn, and that affects the culture. It can get chaotic, and then you got everybody's mama and cousin moving from Mississippi. They may have different motives and different intentions, and so you get that hodgepodge. And I can imagine it's a cesspool, obviously, for a lot of different activities. Plus, you're still dealing with barriers that keep people from becoming who they would like to be. So you are in the music space, right? And Detroit has a rich music history, you know, from Motown to even the hip hop. You go all the way down.
Yes.
It didn't work, or did you stop, or what happened?
I kept going, brother.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I had produced songs for Chris Webber.
Okay.
You know, because I was a popular DJ. So when he was going to University of Michigan, him and Jalen Rose called me to DJ their party.
Okay.
I didn't follow sports, so I'm like, I don't know you guys, but it's $400, you know? And so I remember Jay Rose, he was like, well, man, can you just come on, man. We just want you to come and hang with us.
Yeah.
So when I walked in, we was at the Renaissance Center, which is like an iconic building in Detroit. And I'd never seen human beings this tall in my life, in person. And me and Chris became close, and I started producing music for him. And I actually did a song with Corrupt and him called Gangsta Gangsta that charted Billboard, I think, in the high 70s.
Oh, yeah, I remember that song.
Yeah, I produced that. And then I did a song with Redman on Chris' album as well. Yeah. The turning point, though, brother, I'm glad you brought that up. You know, every studio has a kitchen, like you do. And so it's an area where you can go after you record, you can just stop for a moment, eat, and just talk.
Now that's really interesting. You know what else is interesting? Is ad-free content. Like not having this interview interrupted by ads. And that's what I believe you want. The way that happens is by you subscribing to B-Side, where you will get seamless ad-free content, and you'll be able to enjoy this interview along with tons of others without any interruptions.
I'm sitting across from Redman, and we started talking about religion. And at this moment, you know, I had given my life to Christ, surrendered my life.
Were you raised in the church? Like, how does it?
Well, my mother, we went to church, so I was in church, but not in Christ.
Okay.
You know, I was actually, man, you're bringing a lot of memories now. I would skip, so when my mother she was singing the choir, so when she would go up in the choir, I would go out the alley and go to the arcade down the street. And what was interesting, brother, I had a dream. That same alley, I would go out and play the arcade games and come right back before she get out the choir stands. I had a dream that two deacons grabbed me, because I was in the basement, grabbed me, took me to that same alley and pointed down the alley and said, look. When I looked, I saw myself at a podium preaching, and it was clouds behind me. And I couldn't discern the dream at the time, but one of my spiritual fathers told me, God is going to take you out of the four walls into the alley and the highways and byways where people are hurting, where you can preach the gospel. So that was scary to me. And I didn't, you know, bro, I know you know the journey. It's like he calls you and you run until you get tired of trying to do it your way, then you surrender.
Yeah.
But back to the Redman conversation, I started ministering to this brother because I had given my life over. And we was talking about Islam, metaphysics, and Egyptology, and then Christianity. And I remember his manager comes in eating lobster tails like this, like out of his hand, saying, you can't listen to Magi, because I changed my name from Maestro to Magi, because Magi was the wise men in the Bible. So here it is, I'm still trying to hang on to the world, but still wanting to rep Christ. And he said, you can't listen to him. He just made the track with you talking about women calling them hoes and bees and all this. How he gonna talk to you about God? And they both horse laughed me out the kitchen. And in that moment, I said, you know, I'm gonna pick a side. I was never one to be a hypocrite anyway. And Corrupt and I really appreciated him during that time. He was at the height with Dog Pound, and I said, man, I can't do music for you guys anymore. I told all my friends in Detroit. They were like, why not? Why not? You just making the beat. You know, that's what people were saying back then. I said, well, no, I got a vision that my music is the gun. Your lyrics are the bullets. When we come together, that trigger squeezes and kills a mind. So I have to make sure that whatever is in this gun will bring God the glory. And so I left it that day and never looked back. And that's when I started the Union Records Christian hip hop label. Yeah. Yeah, and that's how that came to be.
That is, the gun and a bullet analogy is crazy. So it's interesting because I remember, you know, I'll take a quick foray into the hip hop element because I want to get to a lot of the emotional intelligence and some of those particular things, but just I remember you creating music and orchestrating projects that were cutting edge at the time that they came out. Right. And the first project that was the first all women's Christian hip hop project y'all made. Yeah. I remember the Her Project. Yes. I used to bang that on a regular basis.
Healing through evangelism and rhymes.
Yeah, man.
That was the acronym. Yes.
And so I just remember like being around y'all and knowing like, you know, something different, you know, like, because I mean, there was a lot of Christian rappers, but y'all had something unique, and I could see that even at that time period. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was, and you know, brother, you had the gatekeepers, you know, and our ministry was to the lost, and we never knocked those who wanted to minister to the sheep, those who were in the flock, but we always felt like we never really fit in. That's why when you came and your sound was just everything was just rare, brother. Your energy and it was encouraging because it showed that, wait a minute, there is room for our type of radical living, you know. So
I feel like there's some people who are gifted at going from the church to the world. There's some people who are gifted at going from the church to the church. And then there's some people who are a bridge and people go back and forth. And so I always wanted to be the bridge artist where it's like, I can live in both of those spaces.
That's good.
At some point, you know, you were talking about your mother got sick, she got dementia, and the emotional turmoil that was for you. Talk a little bit about that journey and what you experienced. I remember, I guess there was a point where you were actually asking God to just like take her life.
Yeah, brother. I had prior to that, again, to the journey that got me here, we had purchased a house, my wife and I, large house, had like an in-law suite, and Mama, you can come stay with us, you know? And I said, look, can you, I'm gonna pay for you to go down to Atlanta with your best friend while I renovate this house, because I had skills in construction. As I was renovating this house, brother, my mother had a major mental breakdown. I get a call, she's screaming, yelling, her best friend saying, stop, Marie, stop. And she's just throwing her best friend's furniture around, shattering glasses and vases. And I'm like, what's going on? No one knew. She ran through the neighborhood. Finally, her mind couldn't take all that she was suppressing. And so I had to calm Mom down just to get her on the plane back to Detroit, bro. So when she came back, she had to stay with us. And I, at the time, our house was maybe 1,300 square feet. And I saw the stress on my children. My daughter, who adored my mother, couldn't sleep because she was in middle school because Grandma was pacing in the hallway and in the living room. And then to hear your own mother, you know, like, well, are you going to take care of me? I know you're not going to abandon me. I said, no, Mom, I got a house for you. Fast forward, she had another episode. And the neurologist said, she can't stay with you guys. She needs 24-hour care. At the time, we couldn't afford it. My mother's Social Security couldn't pay for it. Thankfully, you know, the Most High provided a place just 2 minutes from us. Beautiful home, beautiful neighborhood. It would be 4 mothers there, older women who all had dementia, and a lady named Kathy took like amazing care of them.
Wow.
During that process, she would call me when I have anger. My mother would have outbursts of anger rather. It'd be 3 a.m. I got to get up to go to work. I felt like I was losing my mind, Craig. It was like, and I would get up like, I gotta go to work. I can't come over there. One day when I was driving to go see Mom, the Holy Spirit say, you know it's written that you will reap what you sow. I said, yes. You remember the times, Jason, when you would hang out late DJing and your mother would worry and you didn't care the fact that she lost another son. It wasn't that important to you, and you would come home some days in the morning. My mother would be sitting on the front porch shaking, worried. And I would come home and like it was nothing, man, just, hey, Ma, and walk by. He says, well, remember that when you go in that house, because it's your turn to receive what you've planted, your young adult life. And at that moment, I said, okay, good, I get that. But why are you keeping her here when she's not really living? Take her life.
Wow.
God was like, you don't know what love is. That's not love, that's fear. You're selfish. In order for you to take care of her, you can't be this Jason that's only masculine, the one who only exudes strength and boldness, aggression to in the doctors or pharmaceutical companies trying to rip her off. The son that may have to work another job just to help pay for some of her psych medication. You're going to have to become tender, long-suffering, patient, kind, a nurturer. And other than that, you know, she won't get the care she received. She needed. So at that moment, brother, I said, you know, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to leave it all on the field for Mama.
Yeah.
And that's what changed me, because I would have never filed her nails being just the hyper-masculine male I was. I would have never massaged her scalp when she would lose her, just her mind and be angry. And I would just come, and I had to stay calm and say, Mama, it's going to be okay, and just rubbing her scalp. And then when Kathy was sick and down, I had to wash Mom up. And men who are only like masculine, only are stuck in that box, can't do all things through Christ. Because when he needs you to be a nurturer, you can't. When he needs you to be a gentleman, you can't. When he needs you to be a true lover, you can't. When he needs you to be long-suffering, you can't. But if he needs you to fight and provide, you can. So I wanted to be not only all things through Christ, but I wanted to be an image not of him, just of him, because he was the ultimate comprehensive man. You know, and so I embodied all of that, but it was my mother, not my martial arts training, not psychotherapy. It was, he used her as the ultimate sensei, the teacher, to shape me into the man I became today.
Jeez, man, let me tell you, hold on, time out. I get a lot of books. I'm reading this one. This is in this book?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I'm reading this book.
Yes, yes.
Goodness gracious, man. Like that, just the vivid thought of you filing your mother's nails, it gets me emotional. It cuts me to the core because I'm like, man, am I that guy? You know, and who do I need to become to be that guy? Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? That's powerful.
That's good. You know, I was even with the title, it's like, how many of us are the wrong man in the moment? How often do we blow those moments? You know, I often compare, you know, our emotional repertoire to the 8 box of crayons versus the 64 box of crayons. I break it down in there. As men, we're used to the 8, you know, having 8, and I tie it to the emotions, but we only pull 4 of those out: anger, boldness, aggression, and maybe fear. Okay? But women, they choose to use all of the emotions that God has given us both. And then we wonder why we can't communicate with the women in our lives. It's always like a conflict, like, she don't understand, you know, I'm trying to do this and this and that. Like, you're not really hearing her. You can't meet her with what she's saying because you only got 4 colors, brother. So she pulls out violet. She's trying to communicate violet. All you got is purple. She pulls out lime. You trying to get green and yellow, like, okay, but you don't see how hard I'm trying to work. I'm trying to, you know. No, your heart is too hardened. You're hearing her words, but you can't hear her heart. And so we respond dogmatically, and now our wives put their hands up. There is no communication at that point. And so I had to learn how to become a verbal processor and process in real time, like, what is my wife really saying? And when I got to that level, now I can say, hey, babe, instead of saying you pissed me off or, you know, just accelerate to anger fast, I can say, it hurts me that you don't trust me leading this home. Instead of saying, why don't you submit to me? Why don't you trust me, babe?
Yeah.
I haven't failed yet in this regard. We make mistakes, but I hold the house. I do my part as the man and the head of this home. Now I'm pulling more colors out. I can meet her. And that's the importance of being comprehensive as a man. We were created to be more than masculine. You look at David, brother, throughout the Psalms, he cried, but no one dared test his masculine attributes. You got the samurai, great warriors, but they loved the cherry blossom tree. No one talked about their fondness for flowers. You would get beheaded. Where did this come from? Chivalry. It's not a way to pander to women. It was a code of the medieval knights. You see, the whole alpha male concept is a myth. When you study it, I break it down as well, there is no battle between 2 wolves to see who's going to lead the wolf pack. The leaders of the wolf pack are the breeding pair, the male and female.
Today years old.
Listen, you can Google that. It's out there. So in other words, from a human standpoint, the alpha wolves are those that are married. And then when you look at my brothers who often proudly boast being alpha, when you really look at them, when I meet with them, they're trying to hide behind the childhood trauma, the insecurities, the fears. Your whole embodiment is to please women, from the glasses to the cigars, to the big Bugattis, to the Ferraris, to the shoes, to the clothes. But yet you're the alpha, but yet your whole life is geared around pleasing women. And we don't see it because we've been conditioned to believe that we are to lead by intimidation. Those aren't the greatest leaders. If that was the case, we would have great peace in this world. So I lead by example, not intimidation. And that's why it's important especially for our young brothers. You know, I had made an acronym for the word thug, which is a traumatized human unable to grieve. And so that's why if I step on your shoe, you're ready to hit me or pull your gun out and shoot me. Why you can't take disrespect. You can't even process it to keep yourself in an advantageous position. Now you do something, you react instead of respond. Now you like this and the police taking you away. And you lost the real fight because you haven't ruled your emotions. You only got 2 characteristics, provide and protect. And you don't even know how to do those well. We provide for everyone else but us, brother. And I ain't talking about financially, but being able to rest.
Yeah.
You know, and we understand sleep, which is a physical act of just resting. But rest is the spiritual act. Rest is Hebrew for Sabbath.
Yeah.
It restores you completely. That's why brothers have a hard time taking naps when their wives come home. We jump up like, I got to keep working. Our identity, when you're only masculine, your identity is in doing. You're not a human being, you're a human doing. I got to keep moving. I got to keep working. I got to keep grinding. When you look at the word grinding, we know as men of God that words are powerful. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. The word grinding means to wear down, to crush, to oppress. You yell grinding in a machinery shop, they hitting stop, boom, stop, something's wrong. Because when you're grinding, you're wearing down. That's why the majority of people who say they grind look wore out.
Yeah.
And so I believe that the Most High has called me like, men are tired of suffering in silence. We see now like, wait a minute, there's more to life than just doing.
Right.
But until you have enough courage to be authentic and really express, like really allow like Christ to live through you, you'll never really fulfill what you're called to do. And that's why I'm thankful for my mom, that experience. I never thought I would be thankful that my mother developed dementia and I had to endure all that I had. But now, where I am as a man, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Oh, that's really good. Even as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking through like how our working definition of manhood or masculinity has effects on women, right? But I'm curious, like for you, how would you define masculinity or define manhood?
Well, that's the catch right there. So we think masculinity is a comprehensive definition of manhood or being a man. It's not. When you look up the word, it's a few attributes: boldness, strength, aggression, though traditionally ascribed to men.
Okay.
That's it. Wait a minute, I was created to do way more than that.
Right.
Okay? Hence why you never hear women say, I'm a feminine woman. You rarely hear that. There may be a feminist movement, but you never hear a woman just lock into one facet of her humanity, because she knows. I had a single mom. She had to be anything and everything at every given moment. So she knew how to meet the demand of everything. She had to morph from the fighter to the provider to the leader to the nurturer to the gentle woman to the friend. She knew how to do it all. Look at Harriet Tubman, brother. Did she exude masculine characteristics? Absolutely.
Boldness.
But she also had the nurturing side as well. So first and foremost, we don't need to redefine masculinity. It means what it is what it is. And I'm thankful for it. If this building caught on fire, I wouldn't want firemen coming in here not in a masculine spirit. Boom, come on, get out. I want them slanging doors on me, get me up out this boy. But that energy isn't needed when you're dealing with a child with disabilities. When you're dealing with, you may have a son who may struggle with academics and you get frustrated, boom, why don't you just listen to do what you're supposed to do? No.
I need you to get out of my house.
Yeah, exactly. You're so silly, man.
Out of my house.
I thought you meant literally, that's hilarious. But no, that's the thing. So what is manhood? So biblically, there is no masculine and feminine attributes. There's only human characteristics. Look at David again. Look at Yeshua, Jesus, for instance. He exuded every characteristic. I close with him in the book because that's where the whole concept came from.
Yeah.
He was a fighter when he made a whip of cords, beating out the money changers. He was a provider when he fed 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves. He was the leaders teaching his disciples how to be what? Fisher of men. I can go on and on. He was the nurturer, the gentleman. He would communicate with women in a time when you wasn't supposed to speak with them on an intimate level.
Yeah.
No ulterior motives. The gentleman. So what is manhood? Manhood is exuding as many characteristics as possible to help you really accomplish why you're here. They're really, when you, even saying the word manhood, if we think about it, it locks us in. I remember I was at a Charlemagne event, the Mental Wealth Expo in New York, and the moderator asked me, you know, how do you define a man? I said, you can't. Once you do, you've limited his life. I never let no one define me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even a definition of manhood, I'm glad you asked it. It's like, what is it?
So what do you do? Because, I mean, we are in a society where there's a lot of like gender fluidity,
Yeah, for sure.
and this is a man and this is not a man.
Yeah.
Like, you're not trying to erase.
No, I want to be unequivocally clear.
Yeah.
Okay. I am very masculine.
Okay.
You can ask anyone. I'm more masculine. I'm actually, I believe I have a great blend. I know how to go from the lion and the lamb.
Yeah.
See, when you train in martial arts, you understand you can't just be one all the time.
Right.
That's why I love MMA. If I'm a great striker and I stay with that, okay, that's just, just say that's masculine attributes. And a guy shoots for my legs to take me down and I don't have a ground game, I'm done.
Right.
Same thing in life. If all you can do is provide and protect, and you can't be a nurturer, you're not a gentleman, you don't even know what the lover is. It's not about sex with women, but it's much deeper than that. You don't know what it means to be a husband, father, and a son.
Yeah.
You're limited. You're going to lose in life and in the cage. So I want to be clear. No, I am very masculine.
Yeah.
I am the lion.
Right.
But I'm also the lamb.
Yeah, I think what I hear you saying is that as a man, I don't have to just live in the realm of provide and protect. I'm not limited to that. Matter of fact, that hinders me.
What happens, brother? I mean, when you're older, say you're 70 now, you're retired, or let's use athletics for example. Why do you think it's so hard for athletes to retire?
Their identity is wrapped up. Yep.
When I speak to professional athletes, the most liberating thing I can tell them is that you weren't created to play this sport. Some of them even start crying because it frees them. Like, when you're 70 now, you feel you're useless. I got men who worked on assembly lines feeling like they're nothing because they can't provide the same way they used to.
I want to actually, I'm glad you said that, right? You said that these men ended up crying because of that reality. I knew of you way beforehand, but the world knew you because, you know, there was a young man who was breaking a board in your martial arts class.
Yeah.
And you let him cry and work through his emotions, which no one had really ever seen, right? No one has seen a martial arts teacher like dealing with somebody trying to break a board, like cry, let it out. You know what I mean? And that video went viral, like millions of views later.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, men started calling you to cry to you on the phone. Like, what happened?
So this was deep, brother. They didn't call to cry to me. They cried to our women's staff.
Wow.
We had to shut down a union nonprofit for 2 days. The phone would not stop ringing. Men across the world were like, I wish my coach would have gave me that moment. I wish my father would have understood that I was more than this. And I used to think it was a black thing, like only black men struggle with this. That's when I was awakened, like Most High was like, no. All men struggle with this. That man from Australia calling, crying. Asia, I mean, it was like, whoa. And in that moment, what people don't realize, the student Bruce, he broke the board many times before during practice. I knew it was his fear of failure because his family was all there. And that's why I dropped to one knee, being more intentional with discipleship. Like, you're the most important person in this room. And I wanted to free him. I said, oh, we cry as men. I want to let you know that. And I tell brothers who don't like physically share tears, You may get them tattooed, but you're crying the wrong way. You're crying through spousal abuse. You're crying through alcoholism. You're crying through pornography. You're crying through depression. You're crying through suicidal ideations. So why not cry the right way, the natural way, and release all that you've been holding on to? So you have all of these grown men calling with broken boys inside. Like in that moment, they saw themselves on that mat. And I had no idea we had been doing it because I was liberated when my mother had the stroke and I cried and my students saw, oh, I can be human, but the world hadn't. And so in that moment, it was surreal because I didn't know what was like when it went viral, I didn't know why people were calling. Yeah. It was just normal. But when you give a young boy, first you affirm that nothing is wrong with you because you're a human being. Those tears are triggered from a deeper emotion. Your soul is grieving. It's natural. Yeshua, the most powerful person, God, man, to walk the earth, okay, cried when Lazarus died, okay, wept openly in the streets of Jerusalem. If I do that now, guys are like, what's wrong with you? Yeah. No, I'm human. I will not be boxed in anymore. And so that's what made that moment powerful.
Yeah. You said something that you didn't know that it was more than black men. And I am curious though, because from that statement, it sounds like your initial kind of focus group was the young black men in the community around you, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's all I was around, yeah, for sure.
So I'm just curious, like, when I think of young black men, specifically like in an urban context, football, basketball, track, not martial arts. So what makes you feel like I can do this in this community and it's gonna work? Okay.
It didn't make sense to me, brother. It didn't make no sense to me. When I started in Highland Park, which is a rough community, you know, I would say in Detroit, but it's right outside of Detroit. Yeah. And I noticed like all I was doing was martial arts. And I was disciplined, but it wasn't working. Then I started seeing the boot camps. Remember the boot camps? The boys go, sit straight up. So drill sergeant spitting in their face. You gonna respect your mama right now. You understand me? And they made it out of it. But they'd come to me like, it didn't work, Mr. Wilson. I did 2 Scared Straight tours. Wait a minute. How are we going to liberate a boy from trauma by re-traumatizing him? That's why you don't see those anymore. And you're hard-pressed to find a boot camp for boys. I learned that our boys didn't need more discipline. They needed more love. They didn't need to be scared straight. They needed to be healed. My name, Jason, means healer. The Lord is salvation. So it was time when I started the cave, he says, now it's time for you to live up to your name. So I went from all martial arts to 30% martial arts and the rest, a safe space for prayer, open discussion, and biblical meditation. The students I was given initially were in danger of not graduating. In our, I think it was 16 or 24 week like training cycle, they all graduated, brother. Wow. And that was the beginning. And that's when I knew. And so what I love about martial arts versus like sports for what I do to unearth what you're really dealing with, you can hide behind the helmet, you can dribble, there's really no threat. But when a punch coming at you, when you're getting thrown, when you're getting choked, someone gets your back, you feel like there's no way to go. What am I do? Now I tie in the biblical principles. When you get thrown, boom, remember the righteous fall, but we still get up. We wrestle with, like Jacob wrestled with the angel until we bless. You keep fighting, you keep waging. When you down in life, we don't learn jujitsu to stay on the ground and fight. We learn jujitsu to fight on the ground and get up. You see? And so that right there, I believe that's why I call it the Cave of Adullam. That's what David, ran from Saul. And then 400 men came to him, his family, who was distressed, discontented, and in debt. But these men, they couldn't have trained physically. Like, it wasn't they got better at the skills because they was already wrecking everybody. That's why Saul was chasing them in the first place, because David killed his tens of thousands, you know? Saul just killed his thousands. So he was already a beast. All these men were a beast. We all dressed. We all got the watches, the cars, the records. We got this, we got that. Why are we still distressed, discontented, and mentally or spiritually in debt? Why are we dying by suicide 3 to 4 times as likely as women? Why are we committing over 90% of homicides in the United States of America? Why is it that 9 out of 10 people who live to be over 100 are women? See, we got the look, but we're hurting. We say iron sharpens iron, so as one man sharpens another, but we used to just polishing each other. We want polishing partners. We don't want someone to come and take that sword out the sheath and say, let's get that edge sharp, brother. We're going to sharpen this. Here come these sparks. And so I studied briefly Iaido, which is the art of the sword, or the katana. And what was interesting is that the harder you swing this sword, the less likely you can cut what's in front of you. It was when you allowed the sword to cut freely where you're able to slice what's in front of you. So the Bible is called what? The sword of the Spirit. When you stop trying to force it and allow the Spirit to move and do its thing, that's why these boys and men find healing. It ain't me. I'm just a vessel.
Yeah.
It never made sense, Cray. Matter of fact, I had a pastor tell me don't do it.
Really?
Yeah, he says you should just do workshops. Man, we was in hip-hop heavy. We would try to expose what they doing now, the satanic messages and hip. I was doing that in 2004.
Yeah.
They said you should do a tour with that because Craig G. Lewis was popular, I believe, at the time. And I said, no, God told me to do this.
Yeah.
So that's how it came about. And so as far as why I thought it was just a black thing, I see comments there say, people would say, why isn't there more diversity? You know, they trying to be sarcastic. Why isn't there more diversity in your classes? I said, well, that's a question for the other ethnic groups. I said, because there's no sign on my door that says coloreds only.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? I was fortunate enough to teach at my son's school, which is multicultural. When I say it's universal, it just looks different.
Yeah.
Little Johnny, who may be Caucasian, he'll say to me, Sharath, my mother say I shouldn't complain or talk about what I'm dealing with because we got a big house and we got cars, this and that, but I'm depressed.
He's not given the freedom.
Yeah. So it looks different. When I talk to my white brothers, you know, it's like this expectation and they break down. Like, why do you think a banker, matter of fact, one of my martial art teachers was a banker. And we talked about this. Why do you think a banker, highly skilled, could get any job if he gets fired and goes home and kills his family and himself? The pressure.
Yep.
Why you fail? You had you had everything stacked up in your favor. How did you? No one wants to live under that.
Yeah.
And so on the flip side with us, you got to deal with the systemic racism and everything else that, you know, especially what we deal with mentally. Like you know this, brother, we wear trauma like a badge of honor. Like we don't brag about, man, I stay in a safe neighborhood. It is no gunshots.
No, if your trauma's not matching mine, you're less of a man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, where's that coming from?
Yeah.
50 Cent got props. Why? I got shot, 9 times?
Yeah. Which makes people like myself feel inadequate. Because I'm like, well, man, if that's a man, what am I? I ain't been shot no times.
Me either. But now, because one of my brothers, so I lost 2 brothers. My second brother, same dad, different mother. When he died, he was tortured. Okay, he was heavyweight, like millionaire, legitimate, in the late 80s and 90s. Killer. Like, he was like, I got in a conflict. I went to support my boy who was fighting some guys. He wrecked the one guy and the rest broke up. And my crew was there to make sure no one jumped on my man Gabe. The guys, we leaving, we thinking it's over, they follow us. And I'm thinking they just want to fight. I'm like, cool. Nah, they had guns. So we pull over in the gas station, they get out. I'm like, oh snap. So I'm in the front, my boy Nate in the back, rest in peace. And my friend Gary is on my right side, the passenger side. Guy gets in the back with a gun, puts a gun back to the back of my head and say, take me over Gabe house right now. I said, no, I can't do that. I said, I'm sorry for what happened, but I can't take you to Gabe house because Gabe, that's like my family. That means you over there with his mom and all them. He gets out the car. This is God's grace, brother. He gets out the car and they start talking like I'm going to wait for them to make a decision what they going to do. I grabbed the guy who actually had punched me. I grabbed him and I hit the gas down. I wanted to drag him down Schaefer in Detroit, the street. He braced himself and I tore his shirt and I pulled off. They shot the back window out. I share that because I want to tie it into how my brother was. I'm paging him, remember beepers? Mm-hmm. I'm paging him constantly. He was just out of town because it happened on a Saturday. He calls me Monday and he was my idol. He said, what happened? I said, man, we got in a situation. These guys shot out the back window, this and that. I said, can we just go over, maybe shoot up their house or whatever? He was like, nah, let's go inside and get them, kidnap them. I was like, oh, okay, I'll call you back. So I saw then the real side of that life that I used to look up to. It changed that day. I'm like, this ain't, I didn't feel bad no more about not getting shot. This is a miserable life. My brother was so scantless, brother. Okay. He was a gentleman, meaning if you met him, you would not know what he was about. Mm-hmm. But yet he was so into what he was doing. When I would stay at his house, we would have to sleep with the alarm on away. So that means you couldn't get up until the morning. I didn't know it the first time I spent the night with him. I get up to go use the restroom, the alarm go off, him and my cousin come out with their guns.
Man.
I say, my man, this is your life. I can't. When you lay down with us, you lay down.
Wow.
So at that moment, and then when he got killed, I said, no, this ain't the life. And then when you talk to my other family and friends, they miserable. But we promote it like it's the life. Look how many of the rappers have gotten killed who was doing that. Yeah. And you see the shot booming. Oh, you don't see their lungs filling up and them choking on their own blood and convulsing. You don't see that side. You don't see their brains swelling up. See, they don't promote that. I seen some of that growing up. So I lost that, and that's what made me want to, like wearing the thug suit never felt normal to me, brother. Let's be real with you. Yeah. I don't think it feel normal for anyone, but we got to pick and choose. Yeah. And if you're going to either get beat down or bullied or you're going to be this way and fake it, you choose the latter.
A lot of times it's like, for men in society wearing like that badge of self-sufficiency on our sleeve is like a badge of honor, and it's like for us to be needy in a Western context is strange, for us to be like, oh, I'm needy, I'm not the tough guy. And I see this, even my own son who's grown up in a nice neighborhood for the vast majority of his life. But for him, he's like, well, what does it mean for me to be a man if I'm not self-sufficient? If I'm not, if I'm needy, am I a man? If I need my parents and even myself, I'm like, I guess he's a man when he doesn't need us anymore, when he doesn't need anybody. But as a grown man, I'm like, self-sufficiency is not the answer. Right. But what do you tell boys that need to become men? Like, what does that look like for you as you training them and coaching them?
Well, I even go a little further. What I tell men who I coach about being a man, as soon as you stop evolving, you're done. See, as soon as we tell our boys you are now a man, we do rite of passage, meaning we'll tell them like you've denounced childhood, now you are a man, meaning not that you are one, but we will treat you like one by your age and by the responsibility we're giving you. So then it comes like, okay, what is this man? Not male, but what is the man? Like someone, I believe, who's responsible. Okay, yeah. Of course, self-sufficient is very important. Like, can you take care of yourself? But what I hear in you is deeper because not every man can do that. Sometimes it's hard, brother. Sometimes I may get laid off. And if I feel like I can't call you, that's why we, blow our brains out. Yeah. And it's like, no, my man, I'm here for you. The UFC fighter, Patty, what's his last name? I think it's Pimblett. He had a major fight, brother, and his friend the night before took his own life. After he won, he said, "I'd rather you cry on my shoulder than for me to be going to your funeral." So self-sufficiency, yes, you can't get married, brother. You can't take care of yourself.
Right.
You know, and the Bible goes even further. You can't even manage his house.
Yeah.
If you can't manage your home.
Yeah.
But when it's those times when we can't do, you know, call on your brother, reach out. But we got to make ourselves available. And again, just because you have weak moments doesn't mean you're soft. Doesn't mean you're not self-sufficient. You're just down right now.
That's good.
And so as a father, man, I feel you. My son is 17 and trying to grow into his own identity. And I'm like, son, you know, don't put a cap over your head. I tell grown men this. Once you think there's this master level in manhood, you're done. You've stopped growing.
I've arrived.
Yeah. It's cool on social media. It sounds good. But I've never been a grandfather before, Cray. That's going to be a scary feeling.
Yeah.
How do I navigate? So I got to be open to evolve again. And that's, again, I tie it back to MMA, mixed martial arts. When Hoist Gracie came with jiu-jitsu and shocked the whole world, the traditionalists were still here. And we would do that. And they was fighting it, brother. He came and shattered everything. You either evolve or you get left behind.
Yeah.
And so that's manhood.
I think the fact that men struggle with evolving, it creates a unique trauma. And they say suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in America. And, you know, men, I think the suicide rate is almost 4 times more than women. And I mean, from what I'm thinking, it's like, oh, we don't know how to evolve. We don't know. We're afraid of being stuck, or we're afraid that we have failed. But I'm curious, from your vantage point, like, what do you think is contributing to that?
Let's go all the way back to the beginning of this episode, brother.
Yeah.
We're only providers and protectors. Once you're stuck in those 2 characteristics, there is no evolving. That's all you do. That's why, man, Father's Day, for the longest, my wife and kids said, "What do you want?" "Nothing, I'm good." Because it ain't about me feeling appreciated. If I ain't, why you gonna buy me something? I ain't did nothing for that. Cook me dinner if I work my butt off, you feel me? So that's why we can't evolve. We stuck. And it's all of us. I don't care what type of ethnicity. Every last one of us. I don't care social status. Billionaire, millionaire, thousandaire, hundredaire. All the same. That's why I wrote that book. It's like, I'm going to give you what I do.
Yeah.
Okay? Now you can run with it or not. I wrote the vision down and made it plain. Can you run with it? And that's the key. I got an exercise in there called the earthquake of emotions. On the surface, which is the epicenter, you will see anger. And then you see a house is basically almost demolished, the roads cracking. The second layer you see is the seismic waves, which comes up from the hypocenter. So I have a list of emotions at the hypocenter, at the seismic waves road, and we have anger. As men, we typically stay surface. If we hurt, we angry. If we sad, we angry. If we mad, we angry. But what about when you're hurt, you hurt? When you're depressed, I'm depressed. When I'm lonely, I'm lonely. See, when we start expressing those emotions at the hypocenter level, now there is no seismic waves.
Yeah.
There is no damage to the things that we love most on the surface.
That's good.
We're stopping it where it begins. And that's why I believe, the Most High said, "Cast your cares upon me." The brain isn't meant to hold the trauma.
That's good.
Be anxious for nothing. So it's all there. It's we have to unlearn what we've been deceived a man is and what manhood is, and be willing to evolve.
So I walk away and I hear some incredible things that I know I can take away from this conversation. And obviously I'm going to read this book because I know as a man I'm excited to hear more. But I also think about we're not the only people conditioned to expect a certain expression of masculinity. There are some women who expect us to be that way.
Okay, when you say an expression of masculinity, what do you mean?
Okay, well, provider, protector. That's all.
Right.
Some women have been conditioned to only see us as those two things. What would you say to men who are dealing with women who are just like, yeah, why are you being all good? You acting like a girl. Yeah. You emotional. Like, you doing too much.
Man, I get asked that all the time. Everywhere I speak, brothers are terrified of being perceived as pusillanimous or soft by their women. Like, that's the worst. I use myself as an example. When I was breaking free from emotional incarceration, I remember a time I'm in the car with my wife, Nicole. And yes, Nicole, you be watching, she knows what I'm about to say. And for the first time, I didn't have to raise my voice during a disagreement. I was able to calmly articulate her offense, and which made her very uncomfortable. Because a lot of times women are used to us being emotionally unstable. Even when they're wrong, we make them right when we lose control of our emotions.
You said what you done said.
So my goal, I don't lose them no more. I introspectively bob and weave. When them words, I know they hurt me. Yeah, you failed again. Why'd you do that? I just move. You know, I'm out the way. She don't see it, but inside I'm doing that. And I stay calm. So I'm expressing this. No, you shouldn't have said that. I forgot what had happened. She says, you're the most emotional man I ever met in my life. And gets out the car and boom, close the car door. So I'm sitting in the car and she going in the grocery store. I'm like, oh no, this ain't me. Like, I'm not going out like, no, I don't even want to say it, but you know what I mean? And I said, you know what? I'm gonna go back to being that dog Nigga. Guy come in the house, can't even love you because I still got unresolved anger from my father wounds. I ain't gonna be patient with my daughter because that's how my father raised me. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna hold your hand because when I grew up, guys hold women hand in public, you getting beat down. At Joe Louis, my man know about that sitting over here. Then in that same moment, I said, you know what? Wait a minute. I'm not doing this for her. I'm doing this for me. I'm the one emotionally incarcerated. And I stayed the course. As a byproduct, she benefited, my children benefit, society benefit, the community benefit. But as a man, you gotta fight for yourself. And you can't, we quit fighting because we don't think we worth the fight. We worth the fight, brother. You deserve the freedom to be human. When you tired, say you tired, I can't do this, babe, right now. Don't give me another honey-do list. Here's a honey-don't list.
Wow.
You know, I got that in there for brothers as well.
Yeah.
Because everything is geared toward making our wives happy, and even they're starting to see it makes them miserable. We don't say happy wife, happy life. Me and my wife say happy spouses, happy houses.
Wow, that's good.
And so it's fight. Like, I get it. But if you're dating and you're not married, me and you locked in. But for the single guy, and he says, look, you know, he lets his guard down and let a woman, you know, see, hey, I'm hurting today, you know, had a rough day at work, you know, whatever it is. And she's like, oh, you soft. What's going to happen if you do this? Your boss do this, what you going to quit like a girl? He got to stay mature. He got to stay locked in and say, oh, you're not worthy of me. Oh, thank you. Here, I keep it normal. I pay for this. You'll never hear from me again. Thank you, Most High, for showing me who she was.
Wow.
See, we got to shift our mentality. We got to act like we bring something to the table, too. I got a beautiful wife, man. I can't, like, if she want to make love, I can't really turn it down. Some days I do to keep her honest. Just like if you're playing sports, you know, you got a great defense, and they, like, up on the line of scrimmage trying to smother your receivers. You got to run play action, do other things to get them off the line to keep them honest. Women don't want you always to, come on, babe, let's go. Every time she wants to, that does nothing for them. I understand it takes two to have great sex. It takes two to really be intimate. And then what's deeper, when I became a comprehensive man, and I share this in the lover chapter, I was able to heal my wife from something she could never let go while making love. She had my wife had 5 miscarriages. She's a warrior, like, and had to endure, like, her 5th miscarriage was Olivia, our daughter. She lived to be 5.5 months. And so for them to take her out, they had to create an incision that was vertical instead of like a C-section. And it made my wife very self-conscious, you know. And no matter how many times I tell her, like, you're beautiful, babe, that scar represents what you brought through this earth. We got a beautiful daughter and son after, because they used the same incision to bring him through. One day the Holy Spirit said, I want you to kiss that scar from the top of it all the way down. And so during foreplay, you know, I kissed the scar and just kissed it. And she just started weeping, crying and crying. And I was able to liberate her in that moment because I was a comprehensive man. We think sex is like, again, MMA is a great analogy, ground and pound. That's only one part of the fight, brother. What about the strategy, stand-up game, the foreplay, the touching, the intimacy, the eye contact? We miss that because now if I'm looking in my wife's eyes, I may want to cry because of who this woman has been to me. But I can't cry because I've been programmed that makes me weak. So now I'm like looking away, or I'm like, now I'm thinking about something gangster so I don't cry while looking at her. I'm missing the moment again. So being a comprehensive man it's more than just trying to win at life.
Yeah.
It's about experiencing it.
Man, you just made every woman buy this book for their man. After that, my God. Man, that right there was a podcast in and of itself. That's a whole episode in and of itself.
Yeah.
That is goodness. You said a lot. I know I'm finna plow through this. And don't be mad if I'm hitting you asking you questions.
Brother, I'm open. I'm getting you.
Yeah, don't be mad if I hit you asking questions.
Yeah, for sure, brother.
So there's a lot of stories. You've experienced a lot, but one particular circumstance is where you and your son's life was threatened. Yeah. Like, talk to us a little bit about that situation.
We had just purchased the building for the union, and I was excited, and it had a basketball court on the 3rd floor. And my son loved playing basketball, so we went there, practice. As I was locking up, leaving the building, I dropped my guard. You know, I was in a new neighborhood and was oblivious to my surroundings. I'm starting to lock the door, and I hear someone say, they're trying to kill me. And I look to my left, it's a young man on the phone, and I said, who trying to kill you? He said, they're coming around the corner right now. And I look, and it's a Suburban coming. So I drew my firearm. And I'm like, oh, snap. So my son, I look at him, and that's the benefit of being emotionally stable. See, if you can tap into all your emotions daily, you can be the right man for every moment. My son didn't need to feel the fear in my heart. Again, no man is fearless. We feel it and we move through it. You can't be courageous without fear. So I say, son, hey, I'm going to let you back in the building, and I need you to run to the back of the building and wait for dad to come in. He said, okay, cool. When I closed the door, brother, he looking at me through the glass, and I wanted to cry because I know this is the last time I'm going to see my son. And so I tell him to go back to the back of the building. And then the lion comes back out. And so now the street side of me, the antennas are up. I'm like, well, wait a minute. If someone's coming to kill you, why are you on the phone? This isn't making sense. And so I got in the Weaver stands next to my truck. They was trying to carjack me. So they come around, they circle around. And that's when I had a laser at the time. We didn't have red dots back then. It may have, but I didn't. And so I'm ready to start shooting if they were. I feel what happened because they did another U-turn. Why would you do a U-turn and then another one? He let them know that I could kill them. So I'm trying to look at him and them at the same time. They pull off, and he starts running in the direction where they're going. I said, so these guys who came to kill you, you're going to run where they are going. And he didn't say nothing, so I knew it was a setup. Now, this is what's real important that we forget as men, especially black men in our community that may experience this. Well, let me stop there. Any man that experiences something traumatic, you got to learn how to release it. So I get Jason out. He didn't really know what happened. Get him in the car, I get home, and I'm sitting down in a chair in the kitchen, and my wife's like, "You okay?" I said, "No, I need a moment to release." That's very important for us. See, when you're conditioned to only be strong, only stoic, now you're suppressing all these emotions and trauma, and it doesn't release, and it's going to come out the wrong way. I took a moment to cry right then just to release the heaviness of that moment. But I was so thankful that I was a comprehensive man. I wasn't hypermasculine. The old me, and I wasn't a killer like Tupac said, I ain't a killer, but don't push me. If I wouldn't have had emotional control, I probably would have shot him first. And then like, you just, oh no, you can't, boom, 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 stop dumping at them. Now, whoa, there's no threat. And that's why it's important for us as men to practice being more human.
Yeah.
Releasing the pain and being in the moments and meeting the moments.
Yeah.
Instead of suppressing it, because if not, you're going to blow it when you're supposed to be stable.
So your mom has this stroke.
Yes, sir.
And it puts you in an emotional conundrum.
Yes.
You cry in front of your students. And that was a moment. Like,
Yes.
walk us through that liberation, or what gave you permission to even do that? And how did it feel?
What's deep, it wasn't only my students, it was their dads too, my boys.
Sheesh.
So it was like, I think I speak for every son who loves their mother. When you see the first love of your life deteriorating right before your eyes, nothing else matters. That's why, guy talk about our dad, we don't really say too much. Talk about mom, it's a problem. What do most athletes say when they make the money? I'm gonna get mom a house. Say nothing about dad. He love dad, but it's mom. So when I got that call, that was my first time hearing my mother had a stroke. I didn't know what that meant. It was just too heavy to just stay stoic. It's too heavy to stay strong. You can't. And especially as a man of God, I know that his power is perfected through my weakness, not my strength. So it was just natural. I couldn't hold it no more.
How did your boys feel when they saw that? Your own son seeing you break down?
They hugged me, man. Whew, boy. I mean, just imagine them just coming around you and you're their leader. And in this most transparent moment, you feel a different type of love from them. Even the fathers come off the stage and putting their hands on my shoulders to pray. It was just a very powerful moment, a time in the Cave of Adullam that literally changed its course. So I didn't have to coerce myself to do it. It was, I allowed myself to be human. I knew those tears, that emotion came from a healthy place. And I released it, and the rest is history.
I want to be like you when I grow up. I swear. I swear I want to be like you when I grow up. Listen, I appreciate you, man. This was rich. It's very rich, and I'm excited for any and everybody who sees this. I'm excited for everybody to go get this. Ladies, give it to your man. Read it yourself. You know what I'm saying? So you know what to expect instead of being like, why you so emotional? You know what I mean? But man, I appreciate you, man. You are creating healing out here.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate you. Yeah. Thank you for the invite to come down, and I'm honored to be here, brother.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
This is The Deep End with Lecrae.